Magic exists in almost every fantasy story in some capacity. You've got your bending in the Avatar shows. You got chakra and jutsus in Naruto. And you've got spells in Harry Potter. But what even is magic, and what makes a good magic system? In this video, I'll be giving you a step-by-step guide on how to create a magic system that'll make your readers fall in love with your story. Before we begin, we should probably define what magic is and what the two most common types of magic systems are. Merriam-Webster defines magic as the use of means believed to have supernatural power over natural forces. But that could really mean anything. Shooting beams of energy out of your hands like Goku is magic, the same way Thanos using the Infinity Stones from the Marvel Cinematic Universe is magic. They both just work in completely different ways. And that leads into our next topic, hard and soft magic systems. Two terms were coined by legendary fantasy writer Brandon Sanderson. His Mistborn series uses a particularly hard magic system called allomancy, where users ingest different metals to gain different abilities. A hard magic system is one that just uses rules explicitly stated to the reader. There's things you can do and there's things you can't. Hard magic systems can be limiting, but only if you look at it like it's a box. Hard magic systems are actually force your characters to be a bit more creative due to the constraints of their magic, which leaves room for lots of narrative tension, suspense, and shocking scenes. Soft magic systems don't always tell the reader why things are able to happen the way that they do. Characters often are just able to perform their magic without much thought put into why.
How does he do that? It's still a mystery.
While this may seem like the more creative and free-flowing magic system, it's actually quite challenging to use in a way that makes sense to your reader. However, soft magic systems do have the added benefit of providing your readers with imagination and allowing them to fill in the blanks of how the magic works in your story. Lots of soft magic systems have seen success in pop culture. Stories like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and even Harry Potter utilize very soft magic systems that seem to go over well with general audiences. If your story doesn't really rely on lots of complex ideas, a soft magic system might be the way to go. In my experience, soft magic systems actually seem to be a little bit harder to use than hard magic systems because of the complete apparent lack of rules. At least that's how it seems to the reader. These rules might have been given to the characters in your story, but to the reader, it kind of just seems like things are just happening and there's no explanation for them. This is how plot holes are formed. For example, J.K. Rowling introduced time travel to the Harry Potter series in The Prisoner of Azkaban, but completely forgot about it by the end of the series. I mean, why didn't Harry Potter or Hermione just use time travel to defeat Voldemort and the Death Eaters? It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. You as a writer want to avoid plot holes to the best of your ability. Soft magic systems, because of their nature, often lead to the creation of MacGuffins and Deus Ex Machinas, which can throw your readers for a loop and make them disinterested in your story. It's crucial to avoid these things to the best of your ability. There's three main ways you can avoid plot holes in your story. One, create a timeline. Make sure you don't have any continuity errors. Second, do your research. This should go without explaining. Whatever you do in your story, you're most likely going to have to research something, whether it's the magic system, the culture, or whatever else you're thinking of putting in your story. Make sure you do your research. Third, follow the rules that you've established. If you're making a magic system, chances are you're going to have some rules. Whether or not that you tell the reader is a different story. Follow all three of these rules and you should be fine. Now that we've defined what magic is, what hard and soft magic systems are, it's time to choose between the two. Or is it? While there are two categories, most magic systems actually exist on a spectrum between the two. Pick the side that works best for your world and the story you're trying to tell. But don't close yourself off from the other side. Do you want hard, fast rules, but don't necessarily want to disclose these rules to your reader? On the surface, that might sound like a soft magic system, but in reality, it's a hard magic system to your characters, just not the readers. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's up to you to pick whichever system works best with the story that you're trying to tell. Your magic system is just one piece of the puzzle to your fantasy story. Now it's time to think about, what do you want your magic system to say? This doesn't have to be too complex or too contrived, but you want to think about how your system complements your story and how it affects your world. For example, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Bending connects the users with the nature of the world around them. Their cultures are shaped by the very elements that they control. For example, airbenders are nomads who move with the wind, and their temples are built in high places among the clouds. But on the contrary, earthbenders are more strong-willed and steadfast in their personalities and lived in walled fortresses created out of earth. The very conflicts in the show are caused by the elements and how each one interacts with the other. How do you want your magic to influence your world? How will your magic system enhance the overall theme and messages of your story? These are key things to think about when you're developing your magic system. Now, if you don't know where to start when developing your magic system, a good place to start is look at other successful magic systems and examine them carefully. What did these authors do that you like? What did they do that you didn't like? What would you have changed or added to make it better? From this point, you can use these other magic systems to provide a template or a foundation for the one that you're eventually going to create. Now, while borrowing from other writers is perfectly okay, you want to make sure that you inject just enough originality and uniqueness to make it your own. For an example, I've done this with my own magic system in my fantasy series, the Eldenarian Artifacts. To give you a quick rundown, there are 7 artifacts in my world. Each one gives the wielder mastery over a specific type of magic. For example, the Obscurio gives the wielder complete control over shadow magic, while the Illumio gives the wielder complete control over light magic. When worn, the user becomes almost a godlike figure over this specific type of magic. This was directly inspired by the Infinity Stones from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, they might not seem very similar, but that's kind of the point. They started off very similar, but I tweaked and changed things in certain areas to give them a life of their own. And that's what you have to do when you're using inspiration from other magic systems to create your own. Use it as a basis, but constantly make little changes that make it your own. Your magic system is just a supplementary piece to the larger world and characters existing within it. You want to make sure your magic system complements both your characters and the world that you've created. A good way to have your magic system complement your story is to introduce balances and limitations that make the magic harder to use. For example, balance is important because if a magic system is too powerful, your story may get predictable and your characters might start to feel. That's why limitations are much needed in these type of stories. For example, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, benders have specific elemental abilities, but each one comes with its own strengths and weaknesses. Earthbenders are powerful, but can be vulnerable when not in contact with the ground. Waterbenders can only bend water, so if they're not around a water source, they're pretty much useless. Limitations and weaknesses like this can make character conflicts so much more interesting because it forces your characters to think outside the box and do something outside of the scope of their powers. Another great example of a good limitation to introduce to your magic system is the magical exhaustion concept, where using too much magic can physically weaken or even kill the user. I even use this in my magic system with the concept of Vitale, which is basically the magic life force that lives within the people who can form magic, and when they perform spells and charms and other things, this Vitale gets used up. When all of it is used up before it has a chance to rebuild itself, the user can either get gravely injured or even die. This is seen in many fantasy stories and ensures that characters can't solely rely on magic to solve all their problems. These balances and limitations not only make your magic system more believable, but they also can enrich your plot. They force your characters to think creatively and overcome obstacles in unique ways, leading to more engaging and dynamic storytelling. Now that we've covered all that, there's only one thing left for you to do. Create your own magic system. Answering the questions that we've discussed and implementing the ideas provided should give you a good starting point. Once you do, share your ideas in the comments below, or if you already have a magic system, let us know how it works. How does it influence your world? How do your characters use it? Who does use your magic in your world? Because that's also important. Who knows, you might end up inspiring someone. I might even take a couple from the comments and review them in a future video. If you'd like to see something like that, make sure to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, what are you waiting for? Go make your magic system. I've been LD Jones, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.